This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. Arg. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Asser, and with me as always is me skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Welcome, Mozz. Oh boy. Welcome back to Full Stream Ahead. Tonight's episode, Invincible, Season 1, Episode 2, Here Goes Nothing. With his father out of action, Mark struggles to defend the city against an interdimensional invasion, joining forces with a team of teenage superheroes. Our directors this week are, of course, Paul Firminger and Jeff Allen. Robert Kirkman getting that created by credit. Let's see here. He gets he's sharing that co-creator with Ryan Otley. Oh, Ryan Otley got the writer credit on this one. Simon Reciopa gets our written by. And, Corey Walker, all the way down on the list, got our co-creator credit on this one. Wonder what he did to get the co-created. Anyway, Mozzy. Such a story. So, of course, this opens up with them dealing with everyone. And we see them, interestingly, put the Immortal's head in something to try and, it's interesting what they do with the Immortal, and it makes you wonder how often they've had to
stitch him back together.
Yeah, bring him back. But they don't do a good job in this one because, as we will see later, they don't get him to where he needs to be.
Right. Omni-Man knew what he was doing. He didn't want him to be able to come back, and maybe he knew that the humans didn't have the technology to mend him.
Yeah. Well, at least that's the theory. I mean, we're later going to find out a lot more about the Immortal, and let's just say he's awesome. He's a pretty cool superhero. And, I kind of think he's the kind of guy that could give a Viltrumite the run for his money if he really, really had to. But beyond that, so they're cleaning up, and we find out that, obviously, Nolan Grayson is also in the ER here. That, and no one knows what happened. They just know that,
Now, here's what's interesting to me.
Yeah.
They have sophisticated medical technology. How is Omni-Man even actually hurt?
Oh, because this was the Justice League he went up against. He may have survived, but these were all people that were Omega level threats on their own.
I felt like he was letting them hit him because he needed some proof.
No, actually, you kind of got the idea that had he not taken out Red Rush, that he had to take out Red Rush because Red Rush was the one person who could actually best him at something.
Yeah, I don't know. Especially with what happens at the end of this episode, you get the sense that how did these people even get close to hurting Omni-Man? But and then it made me think he was letting them hit him because those medical professionals would have needed some sort of proof. He can't, sell this story that he didn't do it or that something came in and he was hurt if he doesn't get hurt. And he can't get hurt. It's really hard to hurt him. So it must have been a really interesting dance for him to walk. Be like, okay, I gotta, leave some bruises. That's why he held him there, let him hit him for us. Okay, that's good. A little bit harder. Okay. All right, now I can crush you,
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's a good thing that Flash can't vibrate his molecules. The way, that's the thing. It's like, it's one of these things where, that's one of the things about this that is kind of a sticks in my craw, just because I am such a deep dive comic book nerd. Where I'll look at a power set and I'll go, oh, you actually have way more powers than you know. And it's sort of like...
Or than you're letting on.
Well, no. So, like Adam Eve. And we'll get to Adam Eve eventually. But basically, Adam Eve is the Molecule Man.
Okay.
Adam Eve... And, okay, for those who don't know, the Molecule Man is a being as powerful, or almost as powerful as essentially a... being is so okay. You remember Thanos with the Infinity Stones and all the Infinity Stones? That's like nothing to a guy like the Molecule Man or the Beyonder.
Right, because he's essentially in control of the power of creation itself.
Yes, except the Molecule Man is creation itself. Is the idea?
Right.
But basically, it's that idea that once you can restructure things at the atomic level, that is a level of power that if someone really taps it, there is no defense against it. And it's like, you realize a person like that is at that level. And the fact of the matter is, like people will point out about Barry Allen, that like because he can run faster than light, that he actually is the fastest man alive and is part of the Speed Force. Superman is fast because Superman is fast. But he is actually not part of the Speed Force. And being one with the Speed Force gives you a power that is a little bit beyond that.
Right, but at the same time, you make an interesting point, like, is someone as adept in their powers yet or not? Mm-hmm. Is the fact that someone is, a superhuman, but a superhuman, imbued with mortality, that they can never have enough time to acquaint themselves with the elemental forces to a level where they can master it to that level?
Well, and that is the idea, and that is something of what the Viltrumite point is that they, which we will eventually. I don't want to spoil the Viltrumites, but yeah, they have been around for a very long time, and they're very good at what they do with these powers.
And they give you a hint of that at the end of this episode with that little music montage with I forget what music is playing, but it's just so beautifully put together. Yeah. And then the way it's, again, very Samurai Jack-ish, right? And he's just like busting through it, like. I can't for the life of me would think that all of those Guardians combined would have even required a pinky from Omni-Man if he really was motivated.
No, because this is what I always say about Superman. Even no matter how powerful Superman is, he can't be everywhere at once.
Right.
No matter how fast he can move, he is still bound by space and time.
Right. But at the same time, like he didn't need to fight them hand-to-hand combat in that close quarter, right? Like,
well, no, he needed to because he needed to have plausible deniability.
That's my whole point.
That's my whole point. To the idea that he let them hit them, it's true, but I actually think all of them were powerful enough to hurt them. I think that had they actually been able to do a much more coordinated attack, had they not been caught off guard. So here's what I'll say. I will say that if the Guardians of the Globe had attacked him, I think it would have been a lot closer. I think, because I think that they would have known. It's sort of like, what they always say about Batman and Superman. Like, the reason why Batman can fight Superman is because Superman doesn't laser vision him from orbit.
I know, but I mean, there's certain parallels that are easy to draw with other comic book worlds, but there's certain things here that make it unique to its own story. And I think he's not Superman. He's Omni-Man, and he has a history that plays along with him. And I think they give us a little hint of that. At least for me, like when I was watching this episode, when that ended, it was really, I was left in like, well, how do I put these? They don't weigh this, like how much, these not the same thing. What's happening here? And that sort of really lends to like the mystery of what is he? Who is he? And then you see him do that. And then you think like he must have had a point, right? For doing what he did. It wasn't that he was controlled, or it wasn't that he doesn't remember, or something like there's something much, much deeper going on. And there's something so much more deeper going on because we don't even really know the true extent of his powers. He went into this other world and look what he can do. It's like we think Omni-Man is so great. We have no idea what Omni-Man is capable of.
No, but again, this is the thing about that. So him, because those were, effectively non-powered aliens. They were just aliens with good tanks. They were
Right,
maybe
right,
they're
right.
maybe they're a little.
But he was destroying cities, right?
Yeah, well, he can destroy
moons and
cities.
dropping them, and just like
That's the thing. I will wager that the Immortal can destroy cities. I would wager that the Green Ghost can destroy cities. I will definitely give you that if he wanted to.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it.
Well, it's the idea
that's
that
what
most
I
of
found
these guys
interesting
don't want to destroy cities. That's the idea. It's like if you don't want to destroy a city and you have superpowers, sometimes it's easier to just not destroy the city.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, really what the point is that this is a guy who does not think twice about destroying cities. But also, and that's something that we see a little later on this, which is how this is this might makes right idea is kind of a zero-sum game, especially if you don't want to commit genocide. And that's the thing. If you leave even one alive, it will come back, And I think that is the idea. And I think, we'll see that with other things that we're going to be viewing in later episodes too. But in this one, we have these aliens. And here's why I don't think... I think I can give the idea that he says, well, I should let him hit me. But I think he didn't realize how hard they were going to hit him. Because that's the thing. He goes into a coma. He is knocked out. His wife is worried because she has never seen him like that.
Yeah.
Now, maybe he's just playing, but, maybe not. Maybe they really did.
That's how I say. My personal opinion is that he needed to get beat up pretty bad.
Well, he did need to get beat up pretty bad, and I think they did that.
Yeah.
I think they got him. And, as we'll see later, I do think that, as much as he believes he cannot be defeated or destroyed, I get the feeling it's not as easy as he thinks. Or, it's hard,
Not as hard as he... There is a loophole somewhere.
Well, there always is, and if nothing else, it is, as we say, it is that insidiousness of the human species that, infects you. That is without a doubt probably the most detrimental thing for it, is this idea of, this idea of humanity in its individuality is so much more seductive than anything else you could commit yourself to. And the idea of a human being as a person, as an individual, is so much more powerful that once you get infected by it, it's hard to not feel. It's sort of like, there's an episode of Star Trek when, they always have the problems with the Borg. But they actually have one Borg that they were able to separate from the collective. And it actually gets a sense of self. He becomes Hugh. And they realize that, he eventually has to go back to the collective because if they keep him, he's going to destroy them. But they're like, in his own way, that idea of being an individual, that could be far more detrimental to the Borg than anything else. And we later find out that, yes, actually, it utterly decimated his entire cube because suddenly they all have this idea of self and individuality again, and that super bad for the Borg. Led to all kinds of other problems later on, but I think that idea of self and individual is really hard.
I think what's also seductive for beings like the Immortal Man or like Omni-Man that may live for God knows how long. What's seductive about the human experience is how seriously we take things because we're not immortal, right? So everything matters. Everything counts. Yeah. Every decision has consequence that is dire, right? So it's almost like gambling. That's what it must be like for people that don't get to put any stakes on something, that anything else whatever it is, what it is. And now here it matters. And you're surrounded by people to whom things matter. And you get infected by that joy, that wonder that comes from not knowing and that comes from having something to protect, something that's valuable to that level. And I think that's what infects all these people that come here that are not familiar with the human experience.
Well, there's actually a counter argument to that, which is, and this is from, this was, I think this was during the Siege storyline in the comic books where essentially the Asgardians are on Earth and Dr. Doom invites the Asgardians to Latveria to live with them. And there's this one goddess who's fallen in love with a mortal who Doom has casually killed. And as this goddess is beating the heck out of Doom, he's like, what does it matter? You're immortal. He would have been nothing to you, just, a pet. And she's like, yes, I am immortal, which means that I felt love for someone. And now that love and that loss of that love is going to be with me forever.
As if it wasn't going to be before?
It was, but to have it taken.
Yeah, right. But
that's the thing. That's the idea that yes, I would have loved him forever and it would have hurt me forever. And that's the thing that I think the thing about God's, that's the flip side to it. It's one way, it's easy to say, well, it'll mean nothing to you in time. Because we as humans say that, we can move on from things, but that's mostly because our time is limited.
Right, no, but that's my point.
And if you think about
there's no danger in the way they do things. It's like when we go karaokeing, right? And my friends go, oh, let's get a private room. I was like, why do you want to get a private room? There's no fun in karaokeing in front of people you know. There's no sense of danger. I need strangers in order to karaoke. And otherwise, it's like, what am I doing? I'm just like, then it becomes real. Then you get to live out that fantasy that your 8-year-old self believed that he was going to be a rock star when he grew up. When there's strangers in front of you, when you don't know what's going to happen, when it counts, right? So that's the difference. I feel like what it must be for like immortal beings where nothing matters and everything just moves at its own pace. Now things matter and things end and things are fleeting. And it must be like watching a football game and then watching a football game that you have money on. You know.
I mean, I can follow your line of logic. I just think that it can be much more painful for the immortal.
But that's exactly why. Because there is that danger of hurt, and that's what propels you to try to avoid it. You can't have that joy without facing that danger, walking on that edge of that blade. And that's what's exciting, I think.
Exactly, and that's the idea. And then that's the thing, is that emotion never gets ended. That emotion, that moment, when you live in that moment, that is literally forever for you. And arguably will only increase in its importance in time. Because we think about how when we as mortals look back at certain things in our past and we remember the idealized version, and you have that, and now it's times 1,000,000, and every single person who was that person is now these shining stars in the sky, and then everything is going to just look like dross in comparison, and it is
either
just
that, or you might lose us. I wonder what games your memory plays with you over thousands of years or over tens of thousands of years, how it reformats and represents. Like, can you even have a sense of history or a sense of narrative of your own life when you live that long? Or is it always reshaped to the point where you lose some of it? Or do you have enough bandwidth to carry it all? I don't know.
Well, I guess it depends on the writer. And that's what it comes down to. Because if a writer wants to say, no, everything is there, then everything is there. And if a writer wants to say, no, it all fades in time, then it all fades in time. And then you only live 90 years. So it doesn't matter how old you are as a vampire. It's like, I'm 90 at best.
You only remember 90 years at a time. You keep living, but you only remember 90 years at a time. What a concept. That would be a great...
Yeah, it's like, no. Because like all the old stuff, like I've been around since the Stone Age, but I don't know, rocks a lot.
Wow.
I think we threw rocks at things.
How interesting.
That Nebuchadnezzar. I met him once. I think I met him, or maybe I read about him. I don't know.
Right, it's a person who writes down his own history because he can't remember it. Like, oh, well, let me look at my history book that I wrote from 900 BC.
It's like, that's what's happening. It's like, oh man, how do I read this language? Why did I not think to translate this?
Wow! Oh, what a concept! That's fascinating. That would be interesting.
Yes, exactly. It's all crazy.
So yeah, the other thing that I thought was interesting about this episode was when those aliens come. What were they called? The aliens?
Oh, I forget. It gets a little.
But so I love the concept because it got my gears working at first because it didn't make sense to me because when they were saying is that time runs faster in their universe and when they come here they start aging faster and those ideas seem opposed to each other and so I was like and then we talked about it earlier and then what I arrived at what made me feel good about it was that the substrate of their universe the time space itself is moving at a rate where it grinds against their atoms and their molecules at a certain rate that they need a certain amount of resistance to be able to withstand the grinding of the substrate. And they age normally, but when they get here, the substrate isn't as heavy. And so their molecules run a lot faster. And so that's why they age faster. And so it's like, you know, how like they say there's 3 levels of elementary particles, electrons, protons, and neutrons, and then their heavier cousins, and then their heavier cousins. So what if their world is made up of a different set of those elementary particles?
Well, you can actually even go a little easier on that, which is that I mean, you don't even have to go that deep on it. It's like, if this world, first of it assumes that there's a constant flow of time or a constant rate of time. But the idea that, and anything like this, what we're looking at really, it's not 100% accurate because obviously you don't age, you just sort of like desiccate. Although you could argue that they're desiccating because essentially your body just starts running out of water because all of your metabolic processes are increasing and moving faster. Because that's actually an interesting idea about atomic decay and how, depending on how when you talk about like spatial contraction and how that might affect atomic decay, there's this idea, well, it's my idea, which means it's probably wrong, this idea that basically a lot of what we think about time and atomic decay as our measurement of time is actually false because it's within a gravitational field that has
time is a local phenomenon.
Well, time is always a local phenomenon.
Right.
Time is different at the bottom of a building than at the top of the building because the acceleration due to gravity is slightly off. And it's only off like, you know, a picosecond here or there. But if you're from a planet that, you know, has, you know, that is used to existing in a very slow, like you said, a very slow moving time frame, to come into a universe where suddenly those picoseconds are elongated, or to be more specific, it's like on your universe the picoseconds are a second. Now the picoseconds are a picosecond. Now suddenly what should have been a month is now a day, or sorry, what should have been a minute is now a day, and which means in 7 minutes you're dead because you have run out of water, you die of thirst. Right. Like that's the real way those should always work, which it sort of works because they do like sort of desiccate a bit, but you should really play more into desiccation, and it shouldn't affect the oxidization of items because there should only be so much oxidization that can attack it at a certain time. But that's a whole thing.
But what if it easily or in an easier way lets up its electrons? So like a lot more of it gets like floured. So
yeah, I could see that. Yeah, so basically it just bonds with much more oxygen. Right. Yeah, so I guess it does work. There is a lot of oxygen in our atmosphere.
And just like, you know, like when you light one firecracker, they all sort of like something like that kind of.
Yeah, I guess it works. The only thing I never like is whenever they get like gray hair or their hair starts to grow. It's like
so. To that point, they reverse it at the end when Omni-Man goes into the portal at the end, destroys their whole world, and comes back. He's older, but he's a Viltrumite. He doesn't exactly. Yeah.
And we get a whole thing about that later about, you know, how Viltrumite aging works. But anyway, but you know, we do get our what is it, Damien Dark something.
Darkblood.
Yes. Who is and I guess in the comic books he's not drawn quite so demonically.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
They're the Flaxens. That's what they're called. The Flaxens.
The Flaxens.
Yes. I was looking for that earlier, and I was like, where is it? That is Kevin Michael Richardson plays the Flaxen leader.
By the way, interesting cameos. First of all, in the first episode, I'm like, hey, their high school is named Reginald Bell Johnson. I was like, how cool is that, right? Little nod to Carl Winslow. And then you notice that the principal's name is Mr. Winslow. And he's played by Reginald Bell Johnson. Isn't that amazing?
Well, there you go. That's just classic.
So cool. Yeah.
That is well done. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a very interesting take on it. And also, I like the fact that when, after Omni-Man gets lost in the other dimension and Invincible comes home, it sounds like, no, he gets caught in another dimension like twice. That happens, but he's never been hurt before, which is why I think that. I mean, maybe he let them hurt them, and they hurt him way more than he thought. That's also the possibility.
It's also like he just you can go home. The very next day, he's like taking shots, going. It wasn't it. It was like he came home.
No, that was weeks.
All right.
That was weeks. That was the whole point. Is that they're like
No. He was in the hospital for weeks, but when he came home, the very next day, he just got home, and all of a sudden, this is happening. You know?
Well, yeah, because by the time he's able to, but even then, because we get the moment with the test in this one, and it's like, wait, this isn't Orith, this is Earth, which is just weird. That like. Why are you using a Latin alphabet? I mean, it was a funny gag. Oh, and that was Seth Rogen, Alan the Alien. It's a silly gag, but I guess it works. It works.
I appreciate it. There's so much heaviness to a lot of this. And that's the one thing I appreciate about the Flaxland invasion. For all the heaviness and everything we were dealing with, all of a sudden they're like, hey, don't worry, we're not going to forget that we're a comic book, and we're not going to forget that we're a show where superheroes fight bad guys. We get introduced to the Teen Team and Robot and Rexplode and Adam Eve. Mark is under pressure. And there's another great moment, right? So they just had this amazing scene of just crazy, shocking violence. And then they ease you back into, hey, we're still a cartoon where superheroes fight bad guys. And then this old lady's about to get run over. And Mark comes and he saves her. And he's already shell-shocked after watching people explode and their blood's all over him. He goes to save this lady, and you're like, oh, they're not going to kill a sweet old lady, are they? And he saves her. You're like, oh, they're not going to kill a sweet old lady. And then and then she's laying with her leg bent backwards and is in gray. And you're like, oh, my God, they killed the sweet old lady. And then they give you hope again at the end, and they bring her at the hospital, and you're like, oh, they didn't kill the sweet old lady.
No. She's a sweet old lady. But and as people say, when you check into a hospital at a certain age, checking out of the hospital becomes much less likely. And doesn't matter how good the hospital is. And that's the real sad thing. And to be fair,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's a secondary level on that, which is like, gee, do you think they gave her as good a care as they could have?
I mean, they have the best care available anywhere,
Well, yeah, but now we have to explain how she got well.
I'd like to think that the world wouldn't be that dark, even there.
Yeah, I'd like to think that too, and so we're going to think that. We're all going to think that, and fingers crossed that's what it was. But no, and at the end of the day, it was like she got like an extra couple weeks in a coma out of the deal for it.
Not
and
able
that
to see
I
her
think
family.
I think is maybe one of the moral quandaries.
Right, because you see the toll it takes on Mark, and for like what a petulant little child. Like his father tried telling him, like, hey, there's more serious. It's not just flying around. And he's like, hey, Dad never talked to me about this part of the job. I'm like, oh my God, you ungrateful little,
Well, to be fair,
listening, he was,
I mean, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
That is the thing.
I'm ready, Dad. I'm ready. Oh, you're ready? Like, why don't you sit and take it seriously and listen to what I'm trying to tell you? This is heavy. And then it happens. And then, and you hopefully, like, he learns his lesson from here. But, like, watching that happen, again, like, moments and emotional journeys that you don't really get to see pieces of in other representations of superhero stories.
Yeah.
So I appreciated the fact that we get to see all these sort of valleys and peaks with their psyches.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's not a lot more to say about it than it is just very interesting. And, where it all goes next. I mean, obviously, Damien Darkwing suspects things and makes some obvious points. And you kind of get the idea that maybe Cecil doesn't think that, but I also think that Cecil knows. It's one of those things where it's like you don't want something to be true,
right?
No matter how much you know it to be true.
At this point in my head, I have made Cecil the bad guy, right? That's how I save my version of Omni-Man in my head. Like, Cecil is the bad guy. He knew something there. He's planning something. He's shifty. I don't like that guy. So that's where I am at as I'm watching this episode.
Yeah.
I'm like, I bet you, Cecil. And he's like, oh, he's onto us. He's something. Oh, it's like, he's laying a trap. He's playing the game. And man, what a character Cecil is, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's just like, he's so busy. He's like, for what he must have to do, he does a pretty good job. He's going from like one, crazy situation and doesn't even have like the time to settle into like a plane ride or something. He just zaps into another fire to put out.
Yeah. And he is your classic. I mean, he is a classic, Nick Fury, all institutional knowledge, and what's going to happen when I'm gone kind of thing. It's like nobody is at this level because nobody has seen everything I've seen, and every young person is an idiot on some level. They may be loyal, they may be dedicated, but none of them know not to trust superheroes. None of them know, because that's the thing. I will guarantee you that Cecil has been suspect of all the superheroes the entire time because they're superheroes.
That's his job.
Exactly. And that's the thing.
I love as he's walking away, he says to the guy, he goes, you going to leave the demon here? He goes, what? You got a problem with the demon? Thought you were an atheist.
Yeah.
And the guy, in theory. It's so funny.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like, come on, man. It is what it is. Anyway, but it's a great series. I enjoy it profusely, and I love where it goes. I mean, on every level, it hits the mark. I hope it continues on well in season 2.
Sorry, and one other thing that I think is really great, I'm so glad we got this, because after that explosion happened, after the first scene in the first episode, I was like, oh, we're never going to get to see that security guard again. And I was like, man, I really will never get to figure out if like him and his son are okay. And then you see, and this poor unlucky guy, no matter where he goes, he can't help but like, he thought, I'm going to be on vacation. I'm not going to get to be here when when the superheroes are here or whatever. And the mayhem happens. But like now he gets here and all of a sudden stuff starts blowing up. But his stepson goes, Dad, something. And he goes, oh, you called me Dad. And I was like, oh man, great that they paid that off.
But you also know, you know where what fell there, right?
What?
That was the trash bag that Mark threw up at the beginning of it. Because it's all the mini burgers.
Oh, wow. I did not realize that. I got to go back. Oh, that's so cool.
Because he threw the trash can in his face. It just fell down right there. Which I don't think it would have survived re-entry.
In London.
Yeah. Well, that's the gag,
That's great. That's great.
It was full circle on a bunch of
we didn't get the baseball scene in this episode yet, right? Him and his dad.
We got them tossing
catch?
the baseball around the world.
Oh, that is in this episode, tossing the baseball. That's a great scene too. He throws it around the earth and it comes back to him. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
Just gotta we get into that geosynchronous orbit, but then you got to make sure there's no mountains in the way, and
Yeah, that's why they were that up high.
Doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you're higher than Everest, it'll work,
Yeah.
And then hope there are no planes there either. Got to watch what you're doing. That's always that thing.
Yeah.
All right, Mozzie. Any final thoughts?
No, I think we got to it.
We got to it a lot, and I love this. I hope you've all enjoyed listening to this. If you did enjoy listening it, maybe it's not us. maybe it's you. Maybe you're listening on poor quality headphones because you went to the dollar store to get them, like I often do. And, that's why they're getting rid of those pin jack headphones, because we can't let people, let's get them high quality headphones. But, you say those are so expensive. They don't have to be. Go to tweakedaudio.com, use the coupon code Southgate to get some high quality non-pinned headphones, although they do have pin compatible and probably C-cord or Apple compatible headphones as well. Don't quote me on that, but they probably have all kinds of headphones there. Get those at tweakedaudio.com. Use the coupon code Southgate upon checkout. Get a great discount on them. Likewise, use that same coupon code Southgate upon checkout at huntikiller.com. If you like podcasts, and I know you do, you might have a few murder podcasts in your rotation. Well, how would you like your own murder podcast that you get to solve all by yourself or with friends? Well, that is what Hunter Killer is. They'll have a cold case delivered to your house. You'll help Michelle Gray piece together a bunch of crazy clues, and you'll get to solve it. And if you want, for fun, make your own podcast for it. Likewise, if that interests you, or even if it doesn't, go down to our show notes, click on the link to Amazon. Go to Amazon.com, buy anything you want, because it's Amazon. They have it there. And while you're there, check out, by the way, click on the link because that helps us when you do it. Like, just go to Amazon. Yeah, I know you can buy anything you want, but if you click on our link, it helps out our show. So do that thing. But while you're there, check out Pod Life, the book. It's the book written by the Southgate Media Group community. It tells you why we podcast. And if you like podcasts, and I know you do, you might wonder, what is the psychology of the podcaster? This is a great insight into that. And it might be fun. You can get it either in paperback for when society falls, or in digital if you believe society will go on forever. Your choice. Choose wisely, or choose wisely, or just buy both. Doesn't matter to me.
When we all move to Mars, you can take them both with us.
Well, no. See, the paperback, you got those weight restrictions on going to Mars.
Oh, fair enough.
That's
fair
true.
enough. So digital copies only on Mars.
Exactly, because that's how they get you. But remember, once we move to Mars, then we can wage war on Earth. So, but anyway, if you do any of that and you want to talk to us about it, Mozz, how can they talk to you about it?
They can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com, or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our mothers and fathers once did, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet Legends of Tomorrow, Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern on the CW, at Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIESSER. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, you scurvy landlubbers. We've come to another delightful voyage across the Sargassus that is the internet streaming community. Please come again next week as we once again sail full stream ahead. Arg. Arg.